Imagine a locked briefcase on a table. The man who owned it has just died, and his family stands around it. Everyone knew two things about this man. He started out poor, and somehow he ended up with everything. A good business, good health, a happy life. Whenever anyone asked for his secret, he smiled and said the same thing. It's in the briefcase. The locks click open. There is no money inside, no gold, just one old notebook. And on every page, the same thing, a date and a small checkmark. One page for every day for 40 years. That notebook was the secret. Something so small and so boring that nobody ever noticed it. And the same thing is true about Atomic Habits. 20 million people have read this book, and most of them missed its biggest lessons, including one short sentence that will change how you chase your dreams forever. Today, we're opening that briefcase. 10 hidden lessons, and the last one is the one almost everybody gets wrong. So hit that like button and stay until the end, because this story starts in a hospital room, with a boy in a coma and a baseball bat. The last day of the school year was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it nearly killed a 16-year-old boy and accidentally created the most famous habits book on earth. James Clear was standing with his classmates when a baseball bat slipped out of another student's hands, spun through the air, and struck him directly in the face. The damage was catastrophic. A broken nose, multiple skull fractures, 2 shattered eye sockets. Within moments, his brain began to swell. He stopped breathing. He was rushed to the hospital, suffered repeated seizures, and had to be flown by helicopter to a larger medical center where doctors placed him in a medically induced coma just to keep him alive. When he finally woke up, he couldn't drive a car, he couldn't perform simple motor tasks. The athlete who had dreamed of playing serious baseball could barely function. Now, here's where the story splits in two. Because most people who suffer a setback like this tell themselves a familiar tale. I'll come back stronger. I'll transform overnight. I'll make one massive, heroic push. Clear did the opposite, and that decision hides the first lesson. When he arrived at college, he didn't chase greatness. He chased something almost embarrassingly small. He went to bed early, every night. He kept his room clean, every day. He lifted weights a few times a week. Tiny things. Invisible things. Things no coach would ever put on a highlight reel. 6 years after being hit in the face with a bat, James Clear was named the top male athlete at his entire university and selected as an ESPN Academy All-American, an honor given to only 33 players in the country. He never played professionally. That's not the point. The point is what he discovered in those 6 years. He hadn't transformed through one big moment. There was no big moment. There was only the slow, silent accumulation of small choices, repeated daily, compounding like interest in a bank account no one could see. And that discovery leads us directly to the most misunderstood number in the entire book. For a full 100 years, one country kept losing the same race, over and over, in front of the whole world. In 2003, British professional cycling was a global embarrassment. In more than a century, British riders have won exactly one gold medal at the Olympics. No British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France. It was so bad that one of Europe's top bike manufacturers reportedly refused to sell bikes to the British team. They were afraid it would hurt sales if other pros saw Brits riding their equipment. Then the organization hired a man named Dave Brailsford. And Brailsford brought with him a philosophy with a strange name, the aggregation of marginal gains. His idea sounded almost too simple to work. Break down everything that goes into riding a bike and improve each piece by just 1%. Not 10%, not 50%, 1%. So they redesigned the bike seats for slightly more comfort. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for slightly better grip. They tested fabrics in a wind tunnel. They taught riders the best way to wash their hands to reduce the chance of catching a cold. They even brought their own mattresses and pillows to hotels, so every rider slept in the same position every night. Individually, each change was almost laughable. A better pillow? Really? But here's the math that should keep you up at night. If you get 1% better every day for 1 year, you don't end up 365% better. You end up 37 times better. And if you get 1% worse every day for a year, you decline nearly all the way to 0. Within 5 years of Brailsford's arrival, British cyclists dominated the road and track events at the Beijing Olympics. 4 years later in London, they set multiple world records. A British rider won the Tour de France, and then British riders won 5 of the next 6. 1%. That's the entire secret. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way money multiplies through compounding, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. But wait, if the math is this simple, why doesn't everyone do it? Because of a valley, a dark, brutal valley that swallows almost everyone who enters it. And that valley is our next hidden lesson. A man carries a single ice cube into a freezing room and sets it on a table. The room is 25 degrees, well below freezing. Then he starts heating the room, 1 degree at a time. What happens next explains why most people quit right before their life changes. 26 degrees, nothing happens. 27, nothing. 28, 29, 30, 31. The ice cube just sits there, cold, solid, completely unchanged. Then, at 32 degrees, 1 degree higher, a change no bigger than all the changes before it, the ice begins to melt. Ask yourself, which degree melted the ice? The obvious answer is 32, but that's wrong. Every single degree mattered. The melting at 32 was only possible because of all the invisible heat that came before it. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential, and hidden inside it is the reason most people quit. We expect progress to be a straight line, work in, results out. But real progress looks nothing like that. You work for days, weeks, sometimes months, and see nothing. No weight loss, no muscle, no money, no skill. You're heating the room, and the ice just sits there mocking you. Clear calls this gap the valley of disappointment, and it's exactly where most people give up, often just a few degrees before the breakthrough. Think about bamboo. For its first years, bamboo is barely visible above ground because it's building an extensive root system underground. Then, once the roots are ready, it can shoot up dozens of feet in a matter of weeks. If you judged bamboo by its first years, you'd call it a failure. Here's the hidden lesson. When you feel like you're getting nowhere, you are not failing. Your work is not being wasted. It is being stored. Complaining that you haven't achieved results despite working hard is like complaining that the ice cube hasn't melted at 31 degrees. But knowing this raises an uncomfortable question. If results take this long to appear, what should you actually aim at while you wait? And the answer destroys everything you've been taught about goals. Eight of the fastest humans alive crouch at an Olympic starting line. Each one has trained for years. Each one wants the exact same thing, the gold medal. The gun fires, and 10 seconds later, 7 of them have lost. Now ask yourself the question hiding inside that race. If the winner and the losers all had the exact same goal, then the goal can't be what separated them. Something else did. And that something is the short sentence I promised you at the beginning. The one almost nobody actually sees. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Read that again, because it quietly demolishes the entire self-help industry. It's not just racing. Every job applicant has the same goal: get hired. Every business owner has the same goal: succeed. Winners and losers have the exact same goals, so the goal is never the secret. What separates them is the system, the collection of daily habits and processes running underneath the goal. The gold medalist and the last place finisher both wanted to win. Only one of them had a system of training, sleep, nutrition, and recovery that made winning inevitable. And goals have a darker side that almost no one talks about. A goal creates an either-or world. Either you achieve it and feel successful, or you don't and feel like a failure. Worse, achieving a goal only changes your life for a moment. You clean your messy room, goal achieved. But if you keep the same messy habits, you'll be staring at the same pile of clutter in 2 weeks. You treated a symptom without touching the disease. There's even a trap waiting on the other side of success. Runners train for months for a marathon, cross the finish line, and stop running entirely. The goal was the finish line, so when the finish line passed, so did the motivation. Clear calls this the yo-yo effect of goal-driven behavior. The hidden lesson? Fall in love with the process, not the prize. You don't need to raise your goals. You need to lower your entrance requirements and raise your systems. But this creates a puzzle. If systems are just collections of habits, why is it so agonizingly hard to change our habits in the first place? The answer isn't about willpower. It's about who you believe you are. And that's where this gets genuinely strange. It's late at night at a party, and a stranger holds out a pack of cigarettes to 2 different people, both trying to quit smoking. Their answers sound almost the same, but hidden between those 2 answers is a secret about who you really are. The first one says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second one says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." On the surface, these answers are almost identical. Both people refuse the cigarette. But listen closely, because the difference between those 2 sentences might be the deepest idea in the entire book. The first person still believes they are a smoker who is fighting their own nature, white-knuckling their way through temptation. Every refusal costs them willpower, and willpower always runs out. The second person doesn't see themselves as a smoker at all. The cigarette isn't a temptation being resisted, it's simply irrelevant, the way a vegetarian isn't resisting a steak. There's no battle because there's no smoker left to fight. This is what Clear calls identity-based habits, and it flips the standard model of change completely upside down. Most people start with outcomes. I want to lose 20 pounds. Then they work backward. But lasting change works in the opposite direction. It starts with identity. Who is the type of person who could achieve this? A healthy person. Okay, what would a healthy person do right now? And here's the mechanism that makes it work, the hidden gear inside the machine. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Read 1 page? That's a vote for, I am a reader. Do 1 workout? A vote for, I am an athlete. Write 1 paragraph? A vote for, I am a writer. No single vote wins the election, but as the votes pile up, so does the evidence. And your brain believes evidence far more than it believes intentions. This is also why habits are so hard to break. You're not just fighting a behavior, you're fighting a version of yourself that thousands of past votes have already elected. So the real question becomes, how do we cast better votes automatically without relying on motivation? To answer that, we need to open up the machine itself, the 4-step loop running silently inside your brain right now. It's 2 a.m. A phone lights up on a nightstand, and before its owner is even fully awake, his hand is already moving toward it. He never decided to reach. Nobody decided. A machine inside his brain made the move for him. And that same machine is running your life right now. Every habit you have, good, bad, or invisible, runs on the same 4-step loop inside that machine. Cue, craving, response, reward. Watch it happen in slow motion. The phone buzzes. That's the cue. You feel a pull to know what the message says. That's the craving. You pick up the phone. That's the response. You satisfy your curiosity. That's the reward. And because the reward felt good, your brain quietly writes a note. Next time you hear that buzz, do it again. Run that loop a few thousand times, and you have a person who reaches for their phone before they're even aware they've moved their hand. Here's what most readers miss. This machine has no morality. It doesn't know good habits from bad ones. It only knows one question. Did this behavior solve a problem and deliver a reward? Smoking gets rewarded with relief. Scrolling gets rewarded with novelty. Junk food gets rewarded with a hit of salt, sugar, and fat that your ancient brain thinks is survival. Your bad habits aren't a character flaw. They're evidence that the machine is working perfectly, just pointed in the wrong direction. And once you see the machine, you can reverse engineer it. Clear turns the 4 steps into 4 laws for building good habits. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And to break a bad habit, simply invert them. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. Every strategy in the rest of this video is one of these laws in action. Remember that because it will be important later. But before we get to strategy, there's something you need to see. An experiment inside a hospital cafeteria in Boston. No one who ate there was told it was happening, and what it revealed will make you question whether your choices were ever really yours. A few years ago, thousands of doctors and nurses became test subjects in an experiment they knew nothing about, inside their own hospital cafeteria. The scientist behind it was a doctor named Anne Thorndike at Massachusetts General Hospital. She didn't hand out pamphlets about healthy eating. She didn't lecture a single person. She changed one thing: where the drinks were placed. Originally, the refrigerators next to the cash registers were stocked with soda. Thorndike's team added bottled water to those refrigerators and placed baskets of water next to the food stations around the room. Suddenly, water was everywhere you looked. Over the following months, soda sales dropped by more than 11%. Bottled water sales jumped by more than 25%. Thousands of people made healthier choices, and virtually none of them knew why. Nobody's willpower improved. Nobody's motivation changed. Only the environment did. This is the first law, make it obvious, taken to its logical extreme, and it hides one of the most liberating truths in the book. Motivation is wildly overrated. Environment often matters more. We like to believe we're rational beings who choose our behavior, but an enormous share of what you do every day is simply a response to what's in front of you. You eat the cookies because they're on the counter. You check your phone because it's next to your bed. You watch another episode because the remote is within reach. Every habit is initiated by a cue, and you are far more likely to notice cues that are standing out in your environment. So become the architect of your world instead of its victim. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow every morning. Want to practice guitar? Put the guitar stand in the middle of the living room. Want to stop doom scrolling? Leave the phone in another room entirely, because out of sight isn't just out of mind. Out of sight is out of existence as far as your habit loops are concerned. But environment only gets the machine started. To keep it running, you need to know exactly when and where your habits will happen. And a study of voters in a U.S. election revealed something astonishing about how to guarantee it. One election season, researchers quietly ran an experiment on thousands of ordinary voters and accidentally discovered a sentence that can double your odds of following through on almost anything. Simply asking people if they planned to vote did little, but asking them to state exactly when they would vote, how they would get to the polling place, and what they'd be doing beforehand, that measurably increased turnout. In other studies on exercise, people who wrote down a specific plan, a sentence naming the time and place, followed through at more than double the rate of those who relied on motivation alone. The magic sentence is called an implementation intention, and it looks like this: I will, behavior, at time, in location. Not, I'll work out more. Instead, I will exercise for 30 minutes at 7 a.m. in my living room. The vague version leaves your brain 1,000 exit doors. The specific version closes them all. When the moment arrives, there's no decision left to make, and no decision means no chance to decide wrong. But Clear takes this one step further with a technique that might be the most practical tool in the entire book: habit stacking. Instead of anchoring a new habit to a time, you anchor it to a habit you already have. The formula: after current habit, I will new habit. After I pour my morning coffee, I will write one sentence in my journal. After I take off my work shoes, I will change into gym clothes. After I sit down to dinner, I will say one thing I'm grateful for. Why does this work so well? Because your existing habits are already burned into your brain. They fire automatically every single day without fail. By stacking a new behavior on top, you're not building from scratch. You're plugging into infrastructure that already exists, like wiring a new lamp into a socket that's already live. Still, even a perfectly planned habit can die if it feels too big. And that brings us to a rule so small it sounds like a joke, until you see what it did for a man who couldn't get himself to the gym. Every evening, a heavy-set man drove to the gym, walked in, exercised for exactly 5 minutes, and drove straight home. Anyone watching thought he was wasting his time. That man went on to lose over 100 pounds, and Clear tells his story because that absurd rule was the whole secret. In the beginning, he was not allowed to stay longer than 5 minutes. Insane, right? What can 5 minutes possibly accomplish? Everything. Because for those first weeks, he wasn't building fitness. He was building something far more important: the identity of a person who goes to the gym. He was casting votes. He was mastering the single skill that precedes every other skill: the art of showing up. This is the 2-minute rule. When you start a new habit, scale it down until it takes 2 minutes or less. Read before bed becomes read 1 page. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. Study for an hour becomes open my notes. Most people hear this and think it's a mind trick. It isn't. It's based on a truth about how habits form. A habit must be established before it can be improved. You cannot optimize a behavior that doesn't exist. The person who does 2 minutes a day for a month has something the person planning the perfect 90-minute routine will never have: a habit. An actual, living, automatic behavior that can now be grown. And here's the hidden mechanism. The 2-minute version works because it's a gateway. Nobody reads 1 page and slams the book shut every night. Nobody drives to the gym, puts on their shoes, and refuses to touch a weight. Starting is the hardest part, and once you've started, continuing is almost free. Make it easy. That's the 3rd law. But there's a 4th law left, and it answers a question that has quietly haunted this entire video. If good habits pay off so massively, why does your brain keep choosing the bad ones? The answer involves a stockbroker, a jar, and 120 paper clips. In the early 1990s, coworkers at a small Canadian bank kept noticing the new kid doing something strange at his desk. The same odd little movement over and over all day long. His name was Trent Deersmith. He was 23 years old with no pedigree and no advantages. But on his desk, he kept 2 jars. One held 120 paper clips. The other was empty. Every morning, he made a sales call and moved 1 paper clip to the empty jar. Another call, another paper clip. He kept going until every paper clip had made the journey. 120 calls a day, every day. Within 18 months, Deersmith was bringing millions of dollars into the firm. In a few years, he was earning a salary most of his peers could only dream of. Why did something so childish work so well? Because of a brutal truth about your brain. It lives in the present. The rewards of bad habits arrive immediately. The sugar hits your tongue now. The cigarette calms you now, while their costs arrive years later. Good habits are the exact reverse. The cost is now, the reward is distant. And in a battle between now and someday, now wins almost every time. The 4th law, make it satisfying, is how you cheat this system. What is rewarded immediately gets repeated. The paper clips gave Deersmith something a distant sales target never could: Visible, instant, physical proof of progress 120 times a day. This is why habit tracking works. An X on a calendar, a check mark in an app. Each mark is a tiny hit of satisfaction, and over time, the unbroken chain itself becomes the reward you don't want to lose. But tracking hides one final trap, and Clear diffuses it with 3 words that might save your next attempt at anything. Never miss twice. You will miss a day. Life guarantees it. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit, the habit of quitting. The difference between successful people and everyone else isn't perfection, it's how fast they get back on track. And that brings us to the final hidden lesson, the one I promised you at the start, the one almost everyone gets wrong. Near the end of the book, Clear recounts a moment when a legendary coach, a man who had trained world-class athletes, including Olympic gold medalists, was asked one simple question. What separates the very best from everyone else? His answer disappoints almost everyone who hears it, and that's exactly why it's true. Everyone expects the answer to be talent, or passion, or some burning cinematic hunger. The coach's answer, in essence, was this. At some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom. Doing the same training, the same fundamentals, day after day after day, long after the excitement is gone. That's it. That's the secret at the summit. Not intensity, not motivation. The champions don't feel motivated every day either. They show up anyway. The greatest threat to your success isn't failure. Failure is dramatic, obvious, easy to rally against. The greatest threat is boredom. The quiet Tuesday, 8 months in, when the habit works fine and nothing is new and you'd rather do anything else. Anyone can work hard when they feel inspired. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. So let's put every buried lesson on the table, side by side. Small habits compound into remarkable results, 1% at a time. Breakthroughs come only after a long, invisible plateau, so refuse to quit in the valley of disappointment. Forget goals. Build systems. Don't chase outcomes. Vote for an identity, one small action at a time. Design your environment so good choices become the obvious ones. Give every habit a time and a place, and stack it onto a habit you already own. Shrink the start to 2 minutes. Make progress visible and satisfying. Never miss twice. And when the boredom comes, because it will come, recognize it for what it is. Not a sign that something's wrong, but the final exam that everyone else fails. Remember that 16-year-old in the coma? He never became a professional baseball player. By every dramatic standard, his original dream died on that hospital bed. And yet the small, boring, invisible habits he built instead eventually produced a book that has changed tens of millions of lives, including, maybe, starting today, yours. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And now you understand the briefcase from the beginning of this video. The family was looking for the treasure inside it, but the notebook full of tiny check marks wasn't a record of the man's fortune. It was the fortune. 40 years of small votes, cast one day at a time, hidden in plain sight while everyone around him searched for a secret. The question is no longer whether tiny habits can transform your life. The evidence is overwhelming. The only question left is the one waiting for you the moment this video ends. What is the one small vote you're going to cast today? If this video gave you even one idea worth keeping, hit that like button, subscribe for more hidden lessons from the world's greatest books, and tell me in the comments, which habit are you starting? 2 minutes at a time? I'll see you in the next one.